And what's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to Philly with John Marks. As always, presented by Bet Parks. And as you can see, I'm in the home studio today, if you want to call it that. As this is crazy. I used to always be the person that would say like, I don't really get sick because I didn't. Even with the kids, they would all get sick. I would maybe have like a scratch in the throat, and then the immune system, I'd be good, and I would not get it. This is now two strep throat incidents in about 35 days. As I felt it coming on yesterday, I felt the fever coming on yesterday. I felt the razor blades in the throat, and yeah, by last night going to bed, I had a decently high fever and just a miserable night. But I'm awake. I'm here. I'll be heading to get the antibiotics coming up here. I'm sure I'll talk about it in my Rite Aid commercial coming up in the second half of the show because, yeah, that's what you get. That's why I'm always at Rite Aid. It's been me this year too. So, what's up, everybody? Well, everybody watching live on YouTube, I can actually see your comments now and I can hear the music. Normally, when I'm in studio, I can't hear the music. I feel a lot cooler with the music. It's like cool intro music. And the last one, I feel like I'm in like a Buffalo Wild Wings commercial or something, and I'm walking in to drink beer and eat wings. But I'm not. I'm in the basement to talk about so last night I text Tyler and I'm like, yo, dude, like I can feel it coming on. This isn't going to be good. Why don't we plan on just me doing it from home tomorrow? I mean, honestly, I could have driven in today. Tyler's got a little baby at home and his wife. And the last thing I want to do is bring in a very contagious strep throat and give it to them. But it's like, all right, so like, what are we thinking about tomorrow? And it's like, well, there's a lot of criticism on Jalen Hurts, and is it fair or whatever? And we'll definitely talk about that. But then the 76ers game happened. And like even though I'm not feeling well, it's like, all right, like whatever. Like the kids aren't bothering me. I'm sick. I told everybody to get away from me. So I could sit here and be miserable, but I can do it watching the Flyers and the Sixers. And like really, really good first quarter, felt good, rested 76ers team. The Heat looked like they had just come off a long road trip. I think they had a 7-game road trip, and then they were in the second night of a back-to-back. And the Sixers, even though anytime you go to Miami with a day off, it seems like it doesn't end up working out for you. They were rested. I thought after the first, it's like, no, like, all right, let's get off of this schneid. Let's 2-10. Now it's time to start winning some games here. The Heat aren't very good this year. Let's go. And then the second quarter and the third quarter happened. I just like, and it's the throat's really hurting. And it's like, I just want to scream and yell because I don't know what to say about this team. It's just so frustrating and so weird, right? Like when your team sucks or you don't have enough talent or whatever the reason is, and you know that your team's not good, it's you can be mad about it and you can point out what's going on. But this is weird because as much as a lot of people like me want to say, well, I don't think this is a championship team, even adding Paul George, it gives them their best chance since the JJ Redick, Jimmy Butler team. But like Daryl Morey did the best job he could to try to turn this into a championship team this year. And ultimately, I didn't think it was enough. I certainly didn't see this happening. I certainly didn't see, even with the Joel Embiid injury, I didn't see a 2-11 start. And like last night, it was frustrating because there was a ton of open shots, a ton of open threes that were missed. And it's like, and then the Heat kind of turned it on. But like what I saw in the third quarter was just an overall lack of like care, chemistry. Like I said, it's weird. And like the 76ers stink right now. They just do. Rich Hoffman in the PHLY Daily, I was reading it before coming on, and he just said, Sixers stink. They do. They do. They are so bad. And he says people can't take their eyes off this train wreck. I don't know. I mean, people are tuning into our PHLY 76ers show because these guys are the best in the business. Devon, Kyle, Derek, I'm telling you, it is unbelievable the coverage that you get with this team. It'd be nice if it was some positive coverage, man. I mean, they're friggin' 2-11. What is going on? So 2-11. Not only are they losing games, and it's one thing to lose games And it's like, oh, well, they're losing close games, or they're getting beat and getting beat on a regular basis. All right. It is tough. It's tough to watch. And they're going to have another one against Memphis tomorrow night. Memphis is a team that's over 500. They're on the road. Now they're playing a back-to-back. They have who they have tonight? Memphis is at home tonight, but then they have another game tomorrow night. So they're going to be coming off a back-to-back. But does it really matter with this team? Right? Like, Embiid has looked terrible. Injuries aside and everything else, Embiid looks totally gassed in the second half. There was a team meeting last night. There was an hour, I think, after the game was over, where he came out and addressed the media. And he said, I'm not telling you the details, there was a team meeting. Paul George wouldn't talk to the media after the game, right? Like, what the hell is going on? If you need a team meeting 13 games into a season, oh boy, you're in trouble. Ron Jaworski once told me that by the time you need a team meeting, stuff's already really bad. You don't have a team meeting just to make sure that, like, all right, let's make sure that we nip this in the bud and it doesn't go any further. No. After last night's game, a team, like, I don't know where the team goes from here. And they're digging themselves a hole, and when Maxey gets back, and with Paul George and Joel Embiid, now you got McCain, right? Like, for all the 76ers fans that don't want to hear the criticism and don't want to hear the negativity, don't start with a 2-11 record. Like, what do you want us to do? These games suck, and the team sucks. The coach kind of doesn't even know what to do. And Embiid looks bad out there. Embiid is. I was looking at this earlier. Like, he's barely scoring, right? And so in 2023, so he missed 9 games, and then the other 3 that he's played, it's like he might as well have missed more games because he's been bad. And this team always takes its cues, always takes everything from Joel Embiid. When he's in a bad mood, and it shows. When something's going on with him, it shows, right? I don't know what's going on. He does not, even Joel Embiid, the Joel Embiid that was even when he's out of shape, even when he's injured, all this other stuff, he still is an amazing talent. And he might not be able to do it an entire game. And maybe he ends up hurting himself to where he can't play the next game. And I know he had an illness. Maybe he had strep throat like me. He was doubtful, but he tried to play through it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say about this team. They suck. They really do. And now look at their schedule. You can't say anymore. Just look at the schedule. Be like, all right, well, here's where they're going to, like, make up for a lot of these losses. All right, at the Grizzlies, they'll be significant underdogs in that game. And then you got an NBA Cup game Friday night at home again. Oh man, they'll get up for that one against the Nets. All right, yeah, they should win that game, but they're losing games that they should win. Home against the Clippers, home against the Rockets, at the Pistons, who they've already lost to, at the Hornets. Very winnable games coming up in the schedule, but not the way that they're playing. At what point does it start to click in? Paul George couldn't hit a shot last night, and Embiid sucks. Oh my God. I can't, like, literally, I can't believe that they're continuing to play like this. I can't believe that the effort last night, and Embiid said after the game, he said that, oh, you know, like, I thought we played hard, but we can always play harder. Well, no, if you played hard, you played hard. What do you mean? Like, yeah, of course you can always play harder. You can give 110%. No, you can't. You can give 100%. And either you're giving 100% or you're not. Oh, Jesus. I don't know, man. The Flyers played last night as well. We'll talk about them coming up in headlines with Tyler. And they came charging back. I was kind of flipping back and forth. I was enjoying the Monday Night Football game as well, as the Cowboys were getting clowned, and they got clowned. And we'll actually bring in Tyler if he's ready this morning, because Tyler, earlier in the season with his picks, he rode the Commanders. And he said, I'm riding the Commanders until the wheels fall off, or I'm not riding them. And you said on Friday, I'm betting against the Cowboys until I can't bet against the Cowboys anymore. And it was the easiest bet of the weekend. It really was. It was an early 2 touchdowns for Houston. There was a bad fake punt that happened. I mean, God, it was god-awful. Good morning, Tyler. How are you?
Yeah, I think the first game I won't bet the Cowboys is when they go up against Tommy DeVito and the Giants on Thanksgiving Day. For anybody that's looking to take a nap, that's your 3-hour window on Thanksgiving. That's going to be one of the ugliest football games of the year. But yeah, they stink right now. I mean, it's dreadful how bad, and to Eagles fans' enjoyment, and to Commanders fans' enjoyment, and probably to Giants fans' enjoyment, because it's the only thing salvaging the fact that the Giants are equally, if not worse. But that is a bad football team right now in the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, here's the thing. How many games do they win before the end of the season like this? Two more?
Maybe they beat the Giants?
Maybe. Listen, Tommy Cutlets won 3 games last year. So it's going to be like, when you watch the Cowboys, it's not high effort, let's go, let's try to win games. They're out there knowing that they suck.
They look lost.
They look like they know their coach is gone. They know their owner's an idiot. They know that everybody's clowning them because of the stupid curtains and everything else that's going on. There's like a piece of the top of the thing fell down on the field or something last night.
A piece of sheet metal fell down last night. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. They're a joke, and they're playing like they're a joke. Ezekiel Elliott and his $3 million guaranteed had 1 carry last night. Meanwhile, Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley are out there running the NFL. It's unbelievable. But
so I will say this, John, full transparency, because I believe in transparency when we do shows like this.
Yeah.
I watched every second of the Flyers game last night. I watched about 7 minutes of the Sixers game last night, because even despite the fact that the Flyers were outclassed for a majority of the game, because Colorado started 9-9. It was a slow start for them, but they are vastly superior to the Flyers. It's just a much better team. But with that being said, it was a much more enjoyable product, because you brought up the Sixers, and we'll talk more about it in the headlines. They scored 33 points in the first quarter last night. They scored 33 points in the second half last night. The Flyers, despite the fact that they were outclassed for probably 45 of the 60 minutes last night, were more enjoyable. And that late minute, charge at the end to make it 3-2, that 7 minutes of hockey was better than anything that the Sixers put on the table yesterday.
Yeah, the headline for the Avalanche hockey blog, Mile High Hockey, the headline is "Avalanche desperately hang on for win against the Flyers," and that's so like you always like to hear like what is the other team saying about our team, right? We're very interested in, and everything that I'm reading this morning that's coming from Denver is, man, like that. The Flyers did not give up. They came back and they nearly had it last night. That's a good thing. That's exactly what we're looking for from this team, Tyler. We talked about it a lot. We can't have, hey, this is a playoff team. The expectations have to be, you look at the young players, you want to see them develop, and you want competitive hockey. First 2 weeks of the season, there wasn't competitive hockey. It was dreadful. This is a very competitive team that even when they get down and they get down early, they claw and they fight back. This team plays hard. And it's something that I can't say about the 76ers right now. I really can't.
Yeah, thanks, CJ. Appreciate that reminder. Cal McCarr is unbelievable. Another 3 points last night. I think that puts him up to 28 on the season. Yes, they did pass on McCarr for Nolan Patrick. But I will say, in the Flyers' defense at the time, the top 2 players in that draft were Nico Hischier and Nolan Patrick, and it was a matter of who was going 1 and who was going 2, and that was really what the conversation was. Yeah, it's easy to play hindsight in 2020 because McCarr is disgustingly good, but I think at the time it felt like those were your top 2 guys.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's a lot was happening last night. Let's get to the headlines with Tyler Zulli. Tyler, what do you got this morning?
Yeah, let's do it. And our headlines are brought to us by our friends over at Glad Hair Restoration. And if you want to change how you feel and look better and feel better, head on over to Glad, because they will help you regain your confidence. It's not just about restoration. It's about innovation with our friends over at Glad. So visit gladhairmctr.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started. You mentioned the Flyers. Let's start with them because the Sixers is going to be a quick conversation. They do lose 3-2 last night to the Colorado Avalanche. Colorado up 3-0. Again, it felt like they were the superior team for a majority of it, probably because they are a much better team despite their 9-9 start. Alexei Kolosov stops 26 of 29 shots on net. Flyers lose this one 3-2, but it was kind of a mad scramble at the end. They had an opportunity with the net pulled, a couple of chances down low. Owen Tippett kind of got caught up on a stick and whiffed on a shot. He had a near side shot opportunity that could have tied the game, but a valiant effort by the Sixers. By the Flyers. They lose 3-2. They're back at it tomorrow when they host the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, it's like you had said, a lot of people in the chat are saying it's like the Flyers may not be a good team, but they're watchable right now.
Sure.
They're very watchable. Sixers aren't watchable. It is painful to watch the 76ers right now. But you can see, and listen, I know Tortorella's going to get a lot of criticism, and the stuff that he pulled with Mitchkov maybe was a little bit too much. Team's playing hard right now. So it's fun to watch the development. You wonder where they're going to be towards the end of the season if they run out of gas or they continue to kind of surge. Because like right now, I'm ready to see this. I'm ready to see them as a playoff team.
I'm not sure I'm ready to get you that far because I just think talent-wise they're not quite there yet. They are still there are still a lot of deficiencies with this team. Maybe they find a way to sneak in later in the season. I'm not quite ready to say they're a playoff competitor. I know a lot of people were hoping maybe that would be the case this year. I think this year is kind of the buoy point. I think it's the turning point in a rebuild or a retool or whatever words you want to use. A lot of draft picks left still. A lot of rebuilding still to do, but I do think that it doesn't get any worse if that and if the upswing is there, that's a fair assessment, right? I think that's what everybody's looking for, is competitive while still maintaining a high draft pick.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see that like with the Eagles, you can in 1999 they didn't win a ton of games at the end, but they were at the end of the season. It was okay. We got something here. Like you can feel that there was something brewing for the next year. And in 2000, they made the playoffs. They that was the first year of it. So maybe this is the year before the year, and you just individually need these young players to take the step. So listen, it's exciting. Who would have thought I'd be talking hockey?
To check you out.
Man.
I will say this: Flyers defense a little bit banged up right now. Obviously, Cam York has missed a lot of time. I believe it was Igor Zamula who ended up heading up the tunnel later in the game and didn't return. Tyson Forster also, obviously a forward, but Tyson Forster went up the tunnel, came back. They were definitely a little bit banged up yesterday. Colorado played fast. They played physical, and I think the Flyers probably took the brunt of it. But, as you mentioned, it is at least an enjoyable time, an enjoyable watch, I should say, even if the talent maybe isn't there quite yet.
Unlike the 76ers.
Correct. Who we get to next, as you brought up to start the show. The Sixers lose to the Miami Heat yesterday, 106-89. And as we mentioned earlier, scored 33 points in the first quarter, then proceeded to score 16 and 17 in the third and the fourth for 33 total points. Surprise, surprise, it's Jared McCain leading the way for the Sixers in scoring with 20 points. A couple other double-figure scorers, Paul George, Caleb Martin, and Embiid did have 11. Joel Embiid didn't attempt a single free throw in yesterday's loss to the Sixers. Now, John, just a couple of numbers for you real quick. And these all play in tandem because when one doesn't work, the other doesn't work as well. But the Sixers now, across the NBA, are last in points per game, last in field goals made. They are third to last in field goals attempted per game. Their field goal percentage is last at under 43%. They are making just the fifth least three-pointers per game. Their three-point percentage is second worst to just the Orlando Magic. Defensively, they are last in rebounds per game with under 30. They're the only team across the NBA with under 30 defensive rebounds per game. And their -9 plus-minus is the third worst in the NBA behind just the Jazz and the Washington Wizards. So a lot of dreck going on right now with the Philadelphia 76ers.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Been a lot of fun to watch. Joel Embiid had 2 points after halftime. Last night he had 0 points in the Magic game after halftime. That's a problem. Paul George last night 5 of 13, 1 of 7 from 3, and late in the game he had a couple of really bad turnovers where the Sixers were trying to make a little bit of a run, and they didn't talk to the media after the game. That's not good. One thing here that I had read from Jake Fisher of the Bleacher Report was that he's hearing that the Sixers are they perhaps getting desperate with this start, and they're trying to make a major deal to try and keep pace with everything. Like what does a major deal sound like? Are they trading existing players on their roster? Or they have draft picks? Are they just using draft picks? Not a lot of teams are looking to do trades in the first 15 games of a season. So if they're that desperate that they're looking to make a trade right now, like I mean, I guess. What are you doing?
Yeah, like you said, I don't think there's a lot of teams that are in panic mode just yet, because I think a lot of the teams that are bad are going to be teams that are expected to be bad throughout the season. They're not going to be the ones that make moves until the deadline, and then they'll trade
Yeah.
their movable assets. But like, if you're looking to acquire a big time player right now, who's a big time player on a team that is desperate, right? The teams with double digit losses in the East are the Raptors, the Wizards, and the Sixers. I don't know about you, John. There's not a single player on the Washington Wizards that I think would sit here and be like, oh my gosh, I would sell the sun and the moon and the stars for that guy. They have Alex Sarr early in his career, the rookie, but like, I don't want Jordan Poole. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I'd almost rather have the organization say, no, we believe in our players. We know this is a tough stretch. But like, we got to figure it out. We got to figure it out quick. And Jake Fisher's a good reporter. I'm not saying that he's wrong, but if this is true, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me that they're panicking and they're looking to make a move and they have these draft picks and everything else. So like, all right, listen, I'm open to it. It just doesn't seem something that is going to happen. Like, who are you moving? Like, sure, I'd rather have Kyle Lowry not playing at all. But the problem is who are you putting in there?
Yeah, and I will say, it's unfortunate that it's so early in the season. I think if you're talking about one player in particular who probably the playing time should cease, it's probably Jeff Doughton. Like, I don't think he's an NBA rotational player for this team right now. Kyle Lowry started the year on fire. I think somebody tweeted this out. He was, like a 60% 3-point shooter to start the year. And since then, he's 2 for 26. I think it might have been Derek Bodner even, in fact. I'll go back and double check. And it's funny because the numbers, if you just like take them as a whole, he's shooting like 36% from 3-point distance, which you would take, right? If I just blanket said to you,
yeah, it's not terrible.
Kyle Lowry's going to shoot 36, 37% from 3, you'd be thrilled. But when he's, when it feels like it's night and day, where he's 2 for 26 versus like 12 for 26 to start, or whatever the number comes out to be, it does get a little bit skewed. And that's where people start to have the recency conversation of, can he actually be a rotational player for this team?
Yeah. No. I mean, like, he can be a veteran backup point guard where he's giving you key minutes in big spots. He just he didn't hit a shot last night. I know that he missed 0 for 3 from 3 and from the field. Anything else in headlines there, Tyler?
Yeah, real quick, as you mentioned, the Houston Texans beat the Dallas Cowboys 34-10. Wasn't particularly close. Dallas scores their only touchdown on a 64-yard bomb to Keontae Turpin. Texans pretty much do whatever they want in that game. And then a couple of MLB awards get announced. Paul Skeens, unsurprisingly, wins the National League Rookie of the Year. Luis Gil wins it in the American League. Skeens gets 23 of the 30 first-place votes. Jackson Merrill finishes in second in the National League. Luis Gil, as I said, wins it in the American League. A handful of guys got votes across the American League. It was a much more up in the air race in the American League. It seemed pretty obvious that Skeens was going to win it, but Jackson Merrill had claim to it. He had a pretty good season as well. Shota Imanaga finishes in fourth in this one. He was the other guy that got votes in the National League, but Skeens kind of runs away with first place with Rookie of the Year.
All right. Thank you, Tyler. All right. It is time to speak about our friends over at Glatt Hair Restoration by Morgenstern Medical. Listen, I had a hair restoration procedure. This is a tighter camera angle of me today. I mean, it looks amazing, right? So if you're balding and it's something you're worried about, maybe you're styling your hair differently, you're getting your hair cut differently, whatever. We've been through it. I was doing the same thing. I was getting it cut a little bit shorter, tried shaving my head. That looked terrible. And then I went to Glatt Hair Restoration, and the results are amazing. So hair restoration is one thing, right? But there's a lot of other ways, especially as technology and science, where it is in 2024, right? Like, there are non-invasive treatments that slow down the hair loss process. So all stages of hair loss, whether you're balding, or just starting to lose it, if you listen when I talk about it and you think about it, check out the website. It's glatthairmctr.com. Excuse me. GLAThairmctr.com. A lot of great information on there, before and after pictures, including before and after pictures of me. Also, if you want to go to my Instagram, it's John, Jon Marks, Marks Media. I documented when I had a hair loss procedure, or I had a hair restoration procedure. I took pictures before, I took pictures during, I took pictures after, like a week after, 2 weeks after. So you can see what the whole process is like. It was back in, I think, 2021. If you scroll back on my pictures, you can actually see it. I took videos and everything. So check it out. You get a really good idea of what you're getting with Glatt Hair. Call them. You can speak to their hair team. 610-980-4000. 610-980-4000. GlattHairMCTR.com. All right, talk about Bet Parks. That's right. Even if your team doesn't score, there's always another way to win on the Bet Parks app, playing all your favorite casino games like blackjack, craps, poker, roulette, and hot online slots. Check this out. Peaky Blinders and Breaking Bad. Both are the most popular streaming ones right now. Pro football Sunday night. Birds are 3-point road favorites at Los Angeles. That holds. Still at 3 points. If you're looking to bet the Eagles, I don't know. I would probably wait to see what happens. That line could come down a little bit. I think it more likely it comes down than it goes up. The over-under is 50 points. Bet more than the score in pro football. Bet player performances for touchdowns, passing, rushing yards, interceptions, and more. And new users, if you download the BetParks online casino and sportsbook app right now, get up to $1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. You can play all your favorite casino games with a live dealer right on your phone for real money. Casino bonus must be wagered. See betparks.com for details. You must be 21 and in PA, New Jersey, Michigan, Maryland, or Ohio. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, well, there you go. So I heard Irving Fryer yesterday. He was on WIP, and he was talking about Jalen Hurts and how he was pointing out on the one throw in I guess it was the Dallas game where he threw the interception. It was like a guy that has a gun, like an elite arm or a good arm, fits that ball in the tight windows. So I've heard this a lot, that the criticisms of Jalen Hurts are that he doesn't have the arm to fit it into those tight windows. And because he doesn't have the arm to fit it in those tight windows, he often doesn't do it. So like, I think that the criticism of Jalen Hurts right now is pretty interesting. And maybe it's because we live and die with it, and we've been watching him every game since he became the starter and got drafted by the Eagles. So here's what Jalen Hurts is. Jared Goff was the first overall pick. He was the number 1 overall pick, however many years ago, the Carson Wentz year. And you can see why when he's good. You can see why. At the end of his time in Los Angeles, he had really lost confidence, and he looked like a shell of himself. But I remember people that really know football, and I'll give a shout out to my old partner, Ike Reese. He kept saying the whole time, trust me, he's still good. He's still good. People are sleeping on him. And the Lions made a great deal. They traded Matt Stafford. They got extra draft picks, like an extra first-round draft pick for taking on Jared Goff. Jared Goff was looked at as not a piece in the trade, not a piece that the Lions were saying, hey, we'll trade Stafford, but you got to give us Jared Goff. No, he was a throw-in where they gave additional draft compensation so they would take him off their hands, right? And who knows what the Lions thought. I thought that he would be there a year or two. He's their starting quarterback. They would draft a young quarterback, and that's what they would do. Meanwhile, Goff has developed back into a top quarterback in the league, and you can see why. He's a great natural thrower. He has a great arm, but he throws the spots. He's not throwing to just open receivers. He throws the spots. He's got a good arm where he can fit it in the tight windows, but he also has the 5 interception games. So he's far from perfect. Now, Jalen Hurts doesn't throw to spots. This was Donovan McNabb as well. Donovan had an elite arm, but he wasn't a guy that was trying to fit it into type coverage. He wasn't a guy that was like, all right, let me drop back. I'm going to throw it to a spot. My receiver's going to get there. He never did that. Jalen doesn't do that. Jalen's throwing to open receivers, and he's throwing deep. That's when he puts it up, right? So, he throws a good deep ball, no doubt about it. He's got plenty of arm to be a good quarterback in the NFL. So that throw in the Dallas game, sometimes you just have to say that was a great play by the defense. And it was a great play by the defense. Brett Favre had that arm where he would try to fit balls in, and he didn't mind taking shots. And he also threw a ton of interceptions. Jalen, at least he stopped with the interceptions, but you know what I mean? Donovan didn't throw a lot of interceptions because he wasn't throwing the spots and he wasn't trying to fit it in tight windows. Jalen's a lot like that as well. So like the criticism of Jalen and the arm and all these other things, here's the reality of it. What makes Jalen Hurts special is all the different things that he can do. It's that he is a dual threat with the legs. It is that he comes up big in big spots. You can have the best arm in the world. You can throw it in the tight windows, whatever. But in the fourth quarter, when your team is struggling or they need a touchdown, I believe I've seen Jalen Hurts on many occasions, more than enough occasions, take his team down and get a touchdown. Come up big in big spots. It's not going to happen every time. Not everybody is undefeated when it comes to that. But Jalen Hurts, what he's able to do with his legs, what he's able to do with his arms on this team, with the way they run the ball, Jalen Hurts isn't holding this team back. And that's what I've seen in the last 2 days after the game on Thursday night. I don't know why they suck in the first half. I don't know why they had 3 points. I don't know why they almost had 6 points the week before. I'm not sure what the major malfunction is in the first half. But once they get going in the second half, then they look like a much different team. So let's not get too crazy with saying what Jalen Hurts is, because I know that I've watched him develop. 2022, it went from being like, hey, this is the team that needs to run. This is the team that needs to run. By the Super Bowl, Jalen was throwing the ball all over the place. I feel like the Eagles are in a really good spot right now to where the offense still hasn't played their best game. They can run the football very well. Their offensive line's playing at a high level. Their wide receivers are healthy. Goddard's back being healthy. Now it's a matter of it all coming together. And I didn't understand the negativity yesterday at all. I didn't understand the negativity towards the Eagles or towards Jalen Hurts. I feel really good about this team right now. I do. And give it up to Nick Sirianni. I fired him 5 times. The team's 8-2. And like they have a tough matchup coming up here in the next few weeks, and it'll start in Los Angeles against the Rams. Tyler, like Jalen Hurts is not going to be this rhythm passer. He's not going to be a guy where, he is exactly what he is. And either that's good enough for you. If it's not, for me, it's got to be good enough. The guy's won a lot of football games. So is it perfect? No, but he's been to a Super Bowl, nearly won a Super Bowl. So I have confidence in this guy. I really do.
Yeah, I think that's the reason as to why I titled the thumbnail what I did, critique versus criticism, because I think a lot of times we toe the line in this city, and sometimes we don't know what the line is between what is a fair critique and what is almost a hater's level of criticism, if you will. It's totally fair to critique the things that he does poorly or the things that any athlete does poorly. And we've documented them, right? Holds on to the ball too long at times in the pocket. Progressions feel a little bit slower than they should at times. Slow starts in the first quarter can be detrimental if you're playing a team that does get out of the gate quickly. The good really, really seems to outweigh the bad more times than not. I know you've brought up the Bills game last year a lot, and this was a team last year that didn't feel like this, like they did, after 10. They were 9-1 after 10, or 10-1 after, at this point of the season last year, and it didn't feel nearly as comfortable and as confident as I did this season with this team. And that's probably a product of the defense playing better. It's a product of the running back playing at an exceptional level, and your quarterback's not making mistakes. He went 5 straight games without a turnover before the interception in Dallas, or 4 straight games without a turnover before the interception in Dallas. He has been better more times than he's been bad. I can't explain to you the slow starts. It's baffling at times, and yes, it's frustrating at times. But as you said, when they do get going, they become this like heat check offense that feels like they just march up and down the field at will. So critiques are fair because he's not perfect. And no quarterback's perfect, but the critique is fair of processing and holding on to the football too long. And, sometimes what feels to be a refusal to throw the ball over the middle of the field. But I think the good for a majority of especially this 6-game winning streak now, the good has been far superior to any of the contrary.
Yeah, 6-game winning streak. I guess the ultimate trump card is look where they were last year and they fell apart. But like you had said, this isn't last year's team. This is a much different team. And like this is when the Eagles have been at their best in 2017 and in 2022, they were able to run the ball whenever they wanted to. And this team can, even if they're not having success. And honestly, like this goes to great play calling. And maybe this is where Nick Sirianni deserves a lot of the credit. If you believed what Tim McManus wrote, and I do, because Tim's as good as anybody out there, that during the bye week, some of the veteran offensive linemen went in to Nick Sirianni and said, hey, like, yeah, let's go. Like, let's run the ball. What are we doing? We're built to run. And they run the ball, and they keep going back to it. They keep going back to it. And you look at the difference between pre-buy and post-buy. It's not like right now, it's post-buy, they're averaging 200 yards, literally even 200 yards per game. It was 100 and I think they've added 47 yards per game, what they were averaging before the bye week. So it's like a 23%. They're rushing for 23% more yards, which isn't a lot necessarily, but it's the fact that they're not becoming one-dimensional and they're not saying like, oh, well, the run's not working, so let's just throw. With Jalen Hurts and the way that he's playing the quarterback position right now as far as throwing the ball, you can't be one-dimensional. You can't let the defense know, hey, a pass is coming. That's when he struggles the most. So having the dimension of, hey, we'll run the ball before we throw it, it just helps Jalen so much. And a lot of people will say, well, yeah, well, that just proves that he's not good enough. All right, but it also proves that it works. You know, I mean, sure, would I love to have the best quarterback in the game and a guy that can throw for 500 yards every week? Yeah, like that'd be great. But who's that? Who's doing that?
See, and I disagree with that sentiment because if you like, listen, every once in a while you are going to have your quarterback put the team on his back and win you a football game. That's just the nature of this game. You're going to shut down the run game. You're going to face a good defense. Maybe just things aren't getting going the way, or maybe it's a duel. Maybe it's a back and forth, shootout type of game. The Chiefs are 9-1 this year. I think this statistically is one of Patrick Mahomes' lesser seasons this
11
year.
interceptions, doesn't he?
Their defense has been excellent, and they've gotten contributions in the run game with Isaiah Pacheco being on the sideline for the last 8 weeks. It's been a lot of Kareem Hunt, and they picked him up midway, early in the season.
Yeah.
And they're thriving in the run game enough where it's alleviating some pressure off of Mahomes, who is still Patrick Mahomes, right? And makes plays when he needs to, and has Xavier Worthy, who he's turning into a star, and DeAndre Hopkins looks rejuvenated, and obviously Travis Kelce is still there.
And the defense,
right?
Same thing with the Eagles, like their defense. Pat Mahomes has 11 interceptions this year. You said it, Kareem Hunt. If I Google Kareem Hunt stats right now, he's probably averaging less than 4 yards a carry, right? But Andy Reid actually he's continuing to go to him, They're just eating it up. Let's see. It's not impressive, but he's been impressive. They have 3.7 yards per carry, but he's getting the ball a lot, and Pacheco's coming back. So, and that comment right there, the Ryan Fitzpatrick's his criticism of Jalen Hurts after they won, compared to what he said about Jared Goff throwing 5 interceptions, it was looked at with Jared Goff like, wow, what a great job! He had 5 interceptions. He overcame adversity. But yeah, Jalen Hurts is somehow getting criticized. Like, oh, man, like you're going to lose games if you keep playing like that early. And he missed this guy and he missed that guy. Believe me, I saw the same things, right? To me, it just feels like that, like we talked about it yesterday. Joe Burrow, the Bengals had 6 points at halftime. They're doing the same thing. They're needing to come back. Now, they scored 3 straight touchdowns, but the Eagles have shown they could do that in the second half as well. So
here's the thing, like, is Jalen Hurts statistically like setting the world on fire? No, not passing wise, but I will say this: in their winning streak since they beat Cleveland, and I thought Cleveland, he played well, and then I think it's been at least a baseline of not playing pretty mistake-free football. Here's his completion percentage in those 6 wins: 64%, 71%, 80%, 75%, 70%. 64%. His touchdown to interception ratio, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8-1 through the air. He's added 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 9 rushing touchdowns in that span as well. That's a 17 touchdown ratio to 1 interception ratio. Now I'll go back and try to find his fumbles to add to it. But the point is he's protecting the football and they're scoring. Now I get it, right? That we've talked in length about the first half stuff. It's going to be a conversation, especially if you do play a Detroit or a team that can get off to a fast start and you don't want to be down 14-0 early, because that's a difficult mountain to climb, especially against these good teams. But when you're 17-1 in touchdown to interception ratio between your rushing and your passing touchdowns, your completion percentage has been no worse than 64% in any of the last 6 games. They're not asking him to throw the ball 45 times a game.
He's throwing it like 20, 25 times a game.
His highest attempt total in that 6-win span was this past Thursday. He threw the ball 28 times. He's not thrown for more than 264 yards in any one of those games, but he's had at least 1 rushing touchdown in 5 of the 6. He's had at least 1 passing touchdown in 5 of the 6, and he scored a touchdown between the 2 in every single game of that 6-game winning streak. So critique is fair, no doubt about it, because he's not perfect, but he's been much better than he has been bad over the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not winning games in spite of Jalen Hurts, right? You're winning games in part because he is playing well in the second half. Like, look at the Steelers; they're 8-2. Were they winning games in spite of Justin Fields? Probably, right? Like, he wasn't playing great, but he was doing enough. Then Russell Wilson comes in and he's done more.
Yeah, he's been much better. But still, like, you look at Russell Wilson's number, like, he's not doing. He's managing the game. He's much more of a game manager than Jalen Hurts is. Yeah, like, there is a certain amount of game managing that Jalen Hurts is doing right now. But normally a game manager doesn't have the skill that Jalen Hurts has. He's got it. He's got it. He's not going to satisfy the people out there that aren't satisfied with Jalen Hurts. Like, I get it. I see the same things you do. But when I watch the games, I never feel like, man, Jalen Hurts really sucks. We need to get a different quarterback. Maybe in a half I feel like that. But by the end of the game, you definitely don't feel like that. All right, listen, we'll get back to everything. But let's talk about our friends over at Rite Aid. That's right. Help protect yourself from pneumonia. Adults age 50 or older are now eligible for the vaccine. Used to be 65. The CDC lowered it. So if you're 50 plus, get the pneumonia shot. It's totally free. Millions of people get it every year. It's a respiratory illness, and fall and winter are a time where the germs that cause the disease spread more all over the place. And now's the time to get vaccinated, and you can stay healthy. Some people who get pneumonia have mild symptoms. Others, you know this, have serious complications. Get it right now. It's usually no cost with insurance, and it's getting easy. Like today, you can walk into your local Rite Aid. If you're in Royersford, at about 11 o'clock, you're probably going to see me go in and get my prescription, because there's no doubt I'll be there today. Walk into your local Rite Aid. You can schedule online at riteaid.com. If you're not sure of what vaccine you need, you ask your pharmacist for a personal recommendation. They're here for you. Stop by your local Rite Aid today. All right, TrueMark Financial. I can't say enough about TrueMark. They are my credit union for my business. I was on the TrueMark app last night, paying some bills, checking out my account balance, transferring from checking into savings, trying to save a little bit of the money that I make, right? So TrueMark.com, check them out. If you're in the market for a new home and mortgage rates are coming down, they're going to come down even more in 2025. Now is a really good time to get back in the market. And that's why TrueMark Financial Credit Union is a great place, because they give you, with me, I went in to open up a business checking account. I really was clueless in what I needed and what I was doing. And I got the customer service, and I got, it's exactly what you would want. And it exceeded my expectations. Same thing with mortgage. Get a mortgage consultant that will give you information that you need. What's your credit score? How much can you borrow? What's your interest rate going to look like? Everything in life, personal, business, mortgage, and everything. TrueMark Financial Credit Union. Check them out. TrueMark.com. All right. Well, there we go. I wanted to look at because now the talk becomes the conference, and can the Eagles get to be the number 1 seed? So right now, the Lions have a 9-1 record. Eagles are 8-2. The Vikings are 8-2, and then the Packers and the Commanders. I don't look at the Packers as a true threat to the top of the conference. They're a playoff team, and they might win a playoff game.
But to me, this year's coming down to the Eagles and to the Lions, or if San Francisco sneaks in there. When you look at the betting odds, they still have the 49ers as a team that would have a much better record than they do right now. It's because we've seen them get hot before. And if they get hot and they make it in the playoffs, they could beat anybody. So, but they're not going to have the number 1 seed. So here's the remaining schedule for the teams. All right. So the Lions and the Eagles, they don't play this year anymore. They don't play each other, but they do have some common opponents to where that could be one of the tiebreakers. All right. So here's the remaining games. Tyler Zulu, if you want to jump on, we can go over and see if the Eagles can catch the Lions. So the Eagles' toughest stretch coming up is really in the next 5 weeks. At the Rams this Sunday night, at the Ravens, home against the Panthers, home against the Steelers, who have a knack of finding ways to win, and then revenge factor at the Commanders. So we're going to look at the last 2 weeks of the season. Cowboys and Giants, we're going to count them as wins. All right? Surefire. Unless you don't need that last game.
Assuming you need them, right? Like assuming your seed is not locked in, whether you're the 2 or the
yes.
or you like if you're fighting for a 1, then yes, I would like to believe that you are locking those games in as victories for this team. Both of those teams will have given up. I think both of those teams are going to be fighting for high draft picks. The Giants, in fact, may be fighting for the number 1 overall pick.
And Cutlets hopefully gets a win against some of these teams and they don't get the number 1 overall pick. But like they could, to your point, if the game doesn't matter at the end of the year, it's almost like what so. Okay. If it matters, that's a win. So I'm just going to look at the next 4. At the Rams, at the Ravens, home against the Panthers, home against the Steelers. That's a 3-1 or a 2-2 stretch. And if 2-2, that Steelers game is going to be tough.
If you go 2-2, that will put you at 10-5. Under the guys that those last 2 matter, you could finish the year 12-5. That's a really, really strong performance, especially considering the fact that you started the year 2-2. You'll have won 10 of your last 13 games to finish out the season. And you're probably the 2 seed in that regard because you look at the other division winners currently or the division leaders right now. You've got 2 games in hand on the Arizona or 2 games ahead of the Arizona Cardinals. You've got 2.5 on the Atlanta Falcons. Now it's really like 2 because Atlanta beat you and they'll have but I don't envision Atlanta catching the Eagles in this capacity. Over the last 5 or 6 weeks or whatever, how many games they have left. The other good teams in the NFC currently are 8-2 Minnesota. They're a wild card team. 7-3 Green Bay. They're a wild card team. 7-4 Washington. They're a wild card team. So outside of catching Detroit, really realistically to me, the next team and really the only team that you're thinking of, and maybe this is number 1, is Washington.
Yeah, because they can beat you head to head. No, agreed. Minnesota, if they don't win the division, they're not the number 2 seed, and they would have to win the division.
They'd be 5 at best.
Right, and I don't buy Green Bay. You have the head to head over Green Bay, so you have the tiebreaker. So no, I agree. You're right.
So my question to you then: if they go 2-2 in this 4-game stretch, and they do need those 2 games, and they win them, and they finish 12-5, is 12-5 enough to be the 1 seed?
No. Well, let's go over the line. Let's go over the line schedule. So let's say, can we agree? Let's come to an agreement here. Rams, Ravens, Panthers, Steelers, Commanders, Cowboys, Giants. I say they go 3-2 in those games, and then we'll give them wins in the last one, right? So
I can look at that. Yeah.
So that's 5-2. So that's 13-4, right? Because the Eagles are 8-2.
If they no, because it would only be right because they have 7 games left to go 5-2. Yeah, I guess so.
They'd be 13-4.
Yeah, that math checks out.
All right, so let's say they're 13-4, and that's giving them 2 losses out of the next 5 games, which, it could be better, but I think that's being conservative, right? So that's that. Now, the Lions face, where did I just have it right here? Darn it. All right, the Lions have at the Colts
to win.
Home against the Bears, division game.
The Bears are a mess. They're a mess right now. They're a mess.
Packers, another division game at home.
Good game.
Home against the Bills. So they're tough. They have some tough games, but they're at home, right? The Bills are a tough game. That's at home. That could be a loss, though.
Well, we talked about it at the beginning of the year. One of the things that was going to benefit the Lions, not just the fact that they're a darn good offense, and we knew that they were going to be a pretty difficult team to beat heading into the season. Their schedule, if you look at it, had like a ridiculous amount of either dome or good weather games to throughout the year. So they start the season 3 consecutive games inside. So they're home against the Rams. They're home against the Bucks. That's their first 2 games. Then they go to Arizona. They're inside. They have to go to Seattle, play outside, but it was, still decent weather at that
Right.
point. Then they go on the road for 2 straight, Dallas and Minnesota. Dome and dome. They're home against the Titans. Dome. They had to go to Green Bay. That's their first non-decent weather game of the year. But if I remember correctly, it wasn't terrible weather in that win in Green Bay. They go to Houston. Dome. They beat the Jags at home. Dome. They go to Indianapolis. Dome. Home against the Bears. Dome. 3 straight, in fact, against the Bears, Packers, and Bills. Dome. They have to go to San Francisco and Chicago 2 of the next 3 weeks after that. Those are their only 2 outdoor games where the weather may be implicating. A ridiculous amount of indoor games or good weather games for the Lions this year. And that's a product of playing, half of your season at your home field, which is in fact a dome stadium.
Yeah, and it gives them such an advantage with their offense. If that's one of the reasons with the number 1 seed. So the Lions right now, as far as like the tiebreakers and things like that, you got to beat the Rams for common opponent and conference, because it goes to conference and common opponent. And they both have a tick up on you right now. If you were to lose to the Rams, it would make it tough if you finish with the same record.
Well, and that's why I think, over the next 2 weeks, I think you and I both kind of believe they're going to go 1-1 in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I would much prefer they beat the Rams and lose to the Ravens than inversely, because beating the Ravens, while it's nice to say, hey, you beat Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, who are a good playoff team on the road, an inter-conference game doesn't mean nearly as much as beating the Rams and winning another conference game, even if it does say, okay, well, the Eagles lost to the good team and beat the bad team. Where does that stand? I would much rather have that conversation than the conversation of the Lions have a head-to-head record or a conference record, because now the Eagles have 2 conference losses, 3 conference losses, because they'll have lost to the Bucks, the Rams, and the who did they lose to early in the year?
They both the Lions lost to the Bucks too.
The Falcons.
The Falcons, yes. Yeah, that's what hurts them. That's what hurts them. All right. Well, there you go. That's our Eagles conversation. Really, the only team right now you can focus on, because, well, the Phillies, but then the word comes out that Scott Boras wants $300 million for Bregman and like a $30-year contract or a 10-year contract.
Crazy. Crazy how much money and the thing is, the money's not a huge issue for me, because it's just going over a tax threshold. There's not a chance on this planet I'm giving a 31-year-old third baseman with decreasing stats across the board a double-digit year deal. That's crazy.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like I don't think the market's going to give him that type of a contract, but that even shows they're going to want. Are we giving him 5 years or 6 years? I mean, you're going to have to, I guess.
So if he asks for 11, realistically, can he get 7? Probably.
Yeah. See, I want to move to an island when the Phillies are in the back end of these contracts, bro, because it is going to be. But that's what you do right now, and I have no problem with it. But still, Trey Turner's contract at the end probably is not going to look good.
Yeah, you're going to use the word albatross a lot when it comes to these contracts, and that's the price of doing business. We've talked about that before. Like, you open a window to win, and to get these guys in the door, you have to understand that the close of the window, not only is it going to close, it's going to slam shut, and then they're going to board it up and they're going to nail it down. It's going to be a difficult end with some of the contracts, and you expect that because you're trying to win a World Series now.
It took 10 years with the Phillies from when they wrapped up the last playoff appearance with the crew to get back to it. It was 10 years, right? Which is crazy.
Correct.
Now, it doesn't mean you have to make the same mistakes that you made last time, but I think everybody realizes that Dave Dombrowski's not going to be here in 5 or 6 years. This is his run. He's going for it right now. And then somebody else is probably going to have to deal with it. But yeah, I don't, Tyler, it's somewhat not confusing. I don't know if the Phillies know how things are going to play out. They can want to trade Alex Bohm, or they can want to sign Bregman or whatever. But if that doesn't work out, are they just going to move on from Bohm because they feel like that we have to move on from him because we need to change some chemistry and some of those things? Or do they bring him back and hope that it works out? A lot of times, and I can guarantee you this, Alec Bohm, as much as before in the one instance where he said, I bleep and hate this place, Alec Bohm probably likes being a star player in Philadelphia that's had some success. And it happened with Allen Iverson. Now it only did it for a year, but when the Sixers almost traded him going into the 2001 season, like that kind of there was some sticker shock to that, where he realized like they tried to trade me. So like if I wanted to go to Detroit or I don't want to stay here, like all right, so maybe I do need to change some things. So you wonder if this is put out there, A, to trade him, which I believe that it was put out, all the information was put out there for, but B, if that doesn't work, does this kind of a wake up call for him to be like, hey, listen, like what's happening is not okay, and you need to change things. So I don't know if you just trade him to trade him. I don't know if the Phillies should do that.
No, I agree with you on that regard, and it's why I've been saying for a while I wish I had the ability to like look into a crystal ball to see what the plan at third base would be should they trade Alec Bohm, because of the fact that he is under arbitration for another 2 seasons. He's probably going to make about $11 million this upcoming season. That's the thought of what his arbitration contract's going to be. And if he makes 11 this year, and if he's semi-productive, as I think most would expect him to be, even if he's not first half of last year, Alec Bohm, he'll probably get 13 to 15 in his final year of arbitration. Now, I don't know about you, John, but having a known like Alec Bohm, average defender, decent bat to ball guy, high doubles rate, not a ton of pop, but he's probably going to hit somewhere between 265 and 285. And I know that's a large threshold, but that's a fair range. Kind of knowing what that's going to be, $25 million or thereabout for an everyday third baseman over 2 seasons, an average of $12.5, $13 million per season, is a really intriguing number. And I think it's one that's going to keep the Phillies from just going, okay, let's move the guy because we do need to have that shakeup, as the phrase that they used, because you're not going to get 2 years of arbitration with an everyday third baseman that's better than Alec Bohm for that price range. You're going to be paying up pretty handsomely.
Right.
So I think you do have to take into consideration that, yes, people are frustrated with Alec Bohm. Yes, people are frustrated with the idea of running it back. But if the Phillies aren't presented with a trade, a valuable trade that they feel not only is at least baseline, but probably surpasses what they think Alec Bohm can provide them next year, I'm not sure they're going to immediately make a jump to trade the guy just to trade the guy.
Very interesting. Not a ton of movement so far. I know yesterday there was some reporter put out that the Phillies were going to meet with Soto, or they're still very much interested, or something like that. And I just I'm sure that they will have a meeting with him, because they should
meet with him.
Of course they should. Right. Like if at the meeting Soto says, I want to play with Bryce Harper, I want to be a Philadelphia Philly, then you say, okay, can we make it work?
Sure.
There was a story yesterday that Brian Cashman told him that if you come back or you don't, we're still going to be the Yankees. Right. So it's like, all right, well, yeah, that's the way they feel. But that just means that the Mets or the Giants there's going to be heavy competition for this guy. It just doesn't feel, even with the stories that are out there, it just doesn't feel like it's a viable option for the Phillies.
Yeah, I tend to agree. They're going to call. Every team's going to call. Every team's going to sit down with them. Even the teams that know they can't afford them are going to make a phone call, right? Because, if you don't call, then you know that the answer is no.
Yep.
And so Pittsburgh's going to call, right? Cincinnati's going to call, and they're going to say, hey, here's what we can offer you. And Juan Soto's team is going to hang up the phone. And you're going to process of elimination a lot of teams really, really quickly. The Phillies would be silly not to call. He's a generational type player who is probably going to receive more money than the Phillies are comfortable offering. And he's going to likely end up coming down to a handful of teams. And I think the Phillies are going to be on the outside looking in, but they are going to offer a big deal. I just don't think it's going to be the deal that Juan Soto inevitably is going to take.
Shout out to everybody watching on TV right now. Get over to ALLPHLY or to our YouTube to watch more of the show. Thank you very much with that. Yeah. What other story here before we get out of here? I saw, so TNT and TBS, they're not going to have not TBS, TNT. They're not going to have basketball anymore. That's over with. They were trying to, it's pretty clear the NBA was ready to go to Amazon and move on to some streaming partners. And it feels like the TNT was the one that was going to be live. Because when you think about sports, do you think about TNT?
I do not. Right? No, I do not.
You think of crappy postseason baseball or regular season baseball that you don't really watch. And when you do watch it, you're like, yeah, this presentation. How many years have we said that the TNT TBS presentation sucks postseason baseball? It's just not good, right? So, but the Inside the NBA crew is going to go to ESPN and ABC, but it's going to be produced by TBS and TNT. So in other words, the only thing that's changing is where they're going to be seen. Everything else remains the same. So the same crew, it's more or less just being like produced by them, and then it's being given to ESPN to broadcast, which is interesting because I saw a lot of people were saying like, oh, well, obviously they're going to put Stephen A. Smith on the panel. Stephen A. Smith's not going to be on the show, and maybe at some point they try to do it. But honestly, this is the way I look at it. Is that the reason why you watch that show? And this is one of these shows that you can watch even if you're not a big hardcore basketball fan. And honestly, like I watch a decent amount of ball around the league. I'm not staying up late to watch some regular season game, but these guys are a reason to watch because of their chemistry, because they're entertaining, because they've worked together for so long. And it's like when you tune in, even though Shaq can be a little bit aggravating sometimes, and but like you watch for these guys. Man, ESPN hasn't been able to get any of their pre or their post game NBA. They haven't been able to figure it out, and I think a lot of that is chemistry. You have a bunch of people that are on these shows, and it never seems to work. So you put Stephen A. Smith. You think Charles Barkley and Shaq want Stephen A. Smith on that show? Yap 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 yap, and talking all his trash and making everything about him. Ernie's perfect. Right? They love Ernie. Like they each have a role and it works really well. Man, the last thing this show needs is Stephen A. Smith even popping his face anywhere near it. So I don't think that's going to happen. So there you go. All right, Tyler, we're back. I'm off to get a strep test and to get an antibiotic at Rite Aid. So we'll be back tomorrow. Philly show is coming up, I think at 11 o'clock. So Tyler, who did this show at home,
we'll be here at 11.
11 o'clock for all your Phillies conversation. That should be great. You can click over to Anthony's show right now. He is live, the Anthony Gargano show. And everybody have a great day. Shout out to everybody that watched live. The podcast will be up a little bit later today because Tyler does have to run into the studio. But podcasts generally posted every day right after we get off the air. We'll talk to everybody tomorrow live back in the studio. See ya.